everyone, welcome to my channel. If it's your first time joining, welcome. If you are a previous subscriber or you're coming from a previous video on my channel, welcome back. In today's video, we will be continuing on with the Calico Cats quilt. If you have not watched any of the videos for the Calico Cats quilt, I recommend that you watch the very first one, because that is going to tell you what all your fabric requirements are, and I go over all your cutting instructions. I have gotten permission to use this pattern in my videos from Missouri Star Quilt Company. I contacted their customer service and I was told that I could use any of their patterns, and I could film it with no problems. So there's that. Okay, so we got that taken care of. Today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to continue with the inner border, and depending on how long the video runs with that, we will do the outer border. You should have reserved 6 of the 2.5 inch strips, so I have those here. I have went ahead and cut my outer borders off camera, and I may be doing my outer borders a little bit different. I may add, I have some scrap, and I may throw in like a cornerstone or just a little piece here and there maybe. I don't know if I will do that yet. In the instructions, it tells you that for the outer border, you will need 1 1/4 yards of fabric. And I had all that here. And then let's see. So it gives you directions to cut your border, but the directions in the written pattern are for a patterned fabric that will be directional. So if you are using a directional fabric, make sure you follow the directions here for that. But what I've done is I just cut my borders the way I normally would, because I'm just using a solid fabric. It is not directional, as you can see. So that's why I went ahead and cut those off camera. So it doesn't really matter. But definitely pay attention to the cutting directions for your outer border here. So we're going to go ahead and go with the inner border first. It says you're going to pick up the remaining 6 2.5 inch strips. So I have 6 here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I have those there. And I am going to move the quilt aside. And I have not cut my selvages off yet, so I'm going to go ahead and do that really quickly. Make sure they're straight. And I will cut these off. And you could probably see Luna the Crafty Kitty there go on by. And I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, cut the remainder of my selvages off my strips, and I will come back and we'll see you in a second. Okay, so I have all my selvage edges cut off. It does not say how to sew your pieces together. If you are going to do like the mitered corner, kind of how like you would for a border, how you sew them together like so. I'm not going to do that for these borders. That's just preference. If you want to sew them together that way, go ahead and do that. That would be if you sew them together like so, and you sew them across. When you lay them like so, and you sew them your pieces across. I don't feel I need to do that, so I'm going to just do straight seams, and I'm going to sew. You're going to sew every one of your strips together, and I need to make sure that my tops are. My white fabric is directional. If you have not seen any of the previous videos, whoops, right out of the hand. Okay, you can see the design, and you can definitely tell which the front is and what the back is. So you want to put your right sides facing. I'm going to sew these together, and I will be right back. Okay, so we have all of our strips put together, sewn together, and I just did them with a straight seam, and you can see we have a nice, really long piece, and I'm not going to cut any of this. It says that to cut the inner borders from this strip, it says refer to the borders on page 10 for your instructions for that. And it says attach the borders. The strip lengths are approximately 60.5 inches, and then for the sides 57.5 for the top and bottom. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take the quilt, and I'm going to put all my border off to the side, and I'm going to sew all the way down one side and then trim it, and then do the other side and then trim that, then sew the top and then sew the bottom. And you can pin it if you wish. I am going to kind of I just kind of go like this. I grab one end and just kind of go like this with it. So it kind of lays in like a little pile. And I put it actually kind of in my lap. I know some people will roll it and put it on a spool holder. I don't really do it that way. Make sure this all kind of goes the same direction. Again, I just kind of fold it like this. Kind of takes a minute to get it all folded, and it's just a little bit easier to keep it all kind of neat. And I've got my border all twisted up. And I mean, do what you'll find the more you quilt. If you're not a seasoned quilter, you'll find that the more you quilt, you'll find what works best for you. Sometimes this works for me. Sometimes I just kind of put it in a bag and set it on the floor next to me, and it'll just kind of feed out of the bag. I put it in the bag so it doesn't get dirty on the floor, or I put it in a bag and hang it with a clip off the edge of my table, and then it'll just feed out of it. Sometimes that's more of a hassle than just letting it go by itself and let it flow. But I found that sometimes that this works best. Okay. So we have that all kind of stacked up. And you're going to now take your quilt, and I have it all folded up here, and it says to do the lengths first and then the top and the bottom. So we're going to excuse me, I'm going to open up the quilt, and I'm going to move all this aside. Okay, so we have the top of our quilt, and this block is my top block right here. And I'm just going to make sure I have my right sides facing. And you can pin it if you wish, or you can just start sewing and just kind of adjust it as you go along. And that's what I do. I just kind of adjust it as I go along. I don't pin it, I don't clip it, nothing. Okay, so I will do the first side, then I will come back and show you that, and then I'll show you how I trim the end off to continue on with the next side, and I will be back in just a few moments. Okay, so I have the first border sewn onto the quilt, and you can see here at the end, and I am not sure how the directions tell you to press it. Let me look. Okay, it does not specify which way to press the seam of your border. I will more than likely press it towards the white. So now what you're going to do is you're going to kind of flip it over. Whoops, let's get it this way. So you have all your excess of your border here, and you can see here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. I'm going to flip it so the border is on the bottom so I can see the quilt top, and then I'm just going to line that up. Make sure it's nice and even. Oops, moved it just a little, and just trim that right off. Now you're just going to flip it right over. And one thing about when you sew your borders on, you always want to make sure that the border is on top, and that is to ensure that you don't get any rippling of the border as you're sewing. Okay, so we're just going to make sure our wrong sides are facing, or our right sides are facing, sorry. So right side to right side, and then you're going to go back to the machine and sew the next side on. So when we get that one, I will be right back. Okay, and again, I have the second border on the side sewn, and you can see there. And again, I will press this. I'm going to trim the excess, and so flip this over, and be really careful that you don't get any of your rest of your quilt caught up underneath. I have made the mistake of doing that before, and I cut my quilt top. I was so upset, but thank God it was on a piece that I could take off easily and replace. It wasn't actually a full block, it was just a solid color, and I was able to replace it easily. Okay, so got that part. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this to my large ironing board. I'm going to press my seams, and I'm going to have the seam to the border. I will do that, and then we will come back and I will sew the remainder of the border on the top and the bottom. So we'll see you again in just a moment. Okay, so I have my borders pressed. I pressed the seam to the outer border side. Now what we're going to do is we are going to move some stuff aside first. We are going to now take the border and we are going to sew our bottom borders, our bottom and our top border. So when I get those sewn on, I will come back and show you after I have them all sewn and pressed. We will see you all real soon. Okay, so I have the top borders done. I have the bottom borders done. And this is the remainder of the 2.5 inch borders. So you can kind of estimate that's about what you'll have left. And like I said, I don't like measuring the borders ahead of time and cutting them off because I might cut them too short. So I just leave all the border all in one piece and sew it all and trim it like I have been showing you. So I just flip that over and make sure it's all nice and straight. And again, grab my cutter and my little ruler, square it up. And trim it. So I will press the seams. I will press my borders open. And so that's what that one will, let me trim that thread. And so that is kind of what you can kind of get an idea there. It's upside down, but you'll get an idea of what the inner borders will look like. I will, let's see, what are we going to do? I think what our next step is going to be is I am going to sew the outer borders, and I'm going to make sure that we have enough fabric for this, and we will attach our outer borders, and I think that is it for the quilt top. So yeah, I think that's what we're going to go ahead and do. Let me kind of turn this around a little, and you can see there that that is the little like ghost cat corner. Oh, it's really cute. I really, really love the way that this quilt is turning out. I know some of you are going to say that the greens don't really go with this green, but the greens do kind of come into where the floral is, and it just, to me, it just ties it all together. So I will press these and I will be back. Okay, so I have decided that we are going to go ahead and continue on, and we are going to finish the quilt top. I'm really anxious to see this done. So I have my outer border strips, and I'm going to sew these all into one long strip. Then I'm going to measure it to make sure that I do have enough to be safe. By my measurements, I need 266 inches, I believe. So I'm going to double check that. And okay, so it says for the strip lengths, they're approximately 64.5 inches. So I'm going to do 64.5 times 2, so 1 for each side, and that's 129. So 129, and then our strip lengths for the top. Okay, so the 129 would be the 2 pieces for the left and right side border. So that 64.5 comes to the 129. And then for the top and bottom strip, the strip lengths are going to approximately be 68.5. So 68.5 times 2 is 137. Then we're going to take the 137 plus the 129, and that gives me 266 inches. So that's what I know I need my outer border to be. So I'm going to go ahead and sew. This is 2 strips here together. I'm going to go ahead and sew this all into one piece. Then I'm going to measure it, and then I'll come back in just a moment. And I'll tell you your next step. Okay, so I have all of our outer border ironed. I have them sewn together and the seams pressed. And I pressed all of the outer border. And I'm hoping that my calculations were correct and that I have enough of the border here. If not, I do have a one more section that I cut just to be safe. And if I need this one, I can still sew it on. So, my friends, this is it. When we sew this on here, the quilt top is done. Our next big step will be to do my backing, and possibly my backing is going to be a pieced backing because I want to include the little pieces that I have of the fabric left that I cut from. And yeah, that is going to be it. And once we get it layered, the quilting is going to be a really big surprise. It's going to be something new for me, and maybe some of you will recognize something that's been in the video, this whole time. It's just a very, very small part of it, but I'm not going to give it away completely. It will hopefully be a surprise to a lot of you. And I'm going to go ahead and start sewing on our final binding, the outer binding. And I'm just going to go over that with you one more time. So for the directions for the binding for the quilt, the binding, not the binding, the border. The border that they used was directional fabric. And directional fabric, for me to explain that best, would be this striped piece. This is directional. Up and down, whichever way you prefer to use it, or vertically, or sorry, horizontally or vertically. So if you were to use fabric like the striped for your outer border, the directions for that are what they have here in the pattern. Now, that is, I believe, when I purchased this, the length of the fabric was vertical, not the width. Okay, so that was that. The directions to cut that, it says the side borders on this quilt are cut lengthwise to showcase the directional fabric print. Be sure to sew the borders on so that the print is oriented correctly. So that's for if you look at your quilt, that fabric will all be in the same direction. Like I did here on the quilt. If you notice, all my stripes are straight up and down. My cats are upside down though. But I tried to do all of my pieces straight up and down. Some of them, let's see if we have any. Okay, so like this one, I did it vertically or horizontally. And then if you can see this one and this one, these are vertically. I didn't care in my quilt because it's a calico cat. Everything's mixed up. So I didn't mind that this was horizontally and these were vertical. I didn't care at all. But some people may definitely like to make sure that all their pieces, if it's a directional fabric, that they're all cut the same way. So be sure. I didn't bring that up earlier in the video because it just didn't occur to me. It didn't matter to me. But anyway. Okay, so from your outer border fabric, you're going to cut 3 6-inch strips along the length of the fabric. So that means your 1 1/4 yard fabric. You're going to lay that 1 1/4 yard fabric out lengthwise. So you're going to have 1 1/4 yard of fabric lengthwise down your cutting table. And you're going to cut 3 6-inch strips all the way down that length. Okay? And then you're going to sew those strips to form one long strip. Then you're going to cut the side outer borders from this strip. Okay? And this refers to borders page 10. And in the construction basics to measure, you're going to cut and attach the borders. The strip lengths are approximately 64 1/4. And those are for the sides. Then from the remainder of that fabric, you're going to cut 6 6-inch strips across the remaining width of the fabric. I didn't do that because my fabric's not directional. If you're using directional fabric, that's the directions for that. Since I'm using solid fabric, I just cut all my fabric 6 inches. So make sure you really pay attention to the directions. And we are going to go ahead and get to sewing the binding on, or the border. Can you tell I'm excited to get to the end of this quilt? I can't wait to start doing the final quilting on it because it is something so new to me that I've never done before. And I absolutely am horrible at free motion quilting. So just a hint, it is not free motion quilting how I'm going to finish this quilt. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get to it. And once I get all the borders on, I will press it, lay it out, and I will show you the finished quilt, or the finished quilt top. So I will see you all very soon. Okay, so I'm going to show you all a little mistake that I just did. And this is really good that you pay attention to how you lay things out. As you can see here, this is the quilt top. And I started to sew the border on in the wrong direction. You can see here that my seam, and that's the seam, so it would have been backwards. So I'm glad I caught this mistake on the first border strip, on the first part, and that I didn't get more than one border halfway finished before I caught my mistake. So I'm having to rip out my seam and flip it around and sew the border on correctly. So I'm doing that, and when I get that part completed, I will sew it correctly and I will show you the finished result after I have it all pressed. Knock on wood that I do not get any more stupid, goofy mistakes like this. I'm getting really excited that this quilt is almost finished. So I'm making a little bit of some goofy mistakes. So this is where it's really good to use caution when you're excited. So we'll see you all again in a few minutes. Okay, so I have it all finished. I'm a little, I guess you could say, giddy right now. I didn't make any more mistakes while sewing on the border. What I am going to do is I am going to take it out to the living room and take some pictures of it. And it is almost 10 o'clock at night. So tomorrow what I will do is I will lay out the quilt when it's all, I've got really good lighting to show everybody. And in the magic of editing, you will be all seeing this in the next day. So we'll see you in a bit. Hello everyone. It has been a little bit since I did the last segment of the video. I finished all the borders on the quilt, as you can see. I'm out of breath from getting down on the floor and kind of smoothing it out a little bit. As you can see, my borders are a little bit rippled, and I'm not sure what happened. I may just, when I'm quilting it, I'm hoping that those ripples will kind of settle out. I did press the borders. Oh, I'm all out of breath, sorry. You can see that when I did press it, like right in this part right here, and all the way across the quilt along this sashing right here, I pressed it and did a crease in it, and that is to mark my center line of the quilt. And then I did the same with this portion here, and on all of these cap blocks right here, it's worked out really good that is my center line all the way up to the top of the quilt, and I pressed up there at the top as well. And my next step is that I will be putting my backing, my batting, and then the quilt on top. I think I will be spray basting this quilt, and then the next step will be quilting it. And that is going to be a really big surprise how it will be quilted. So I hope you all stay tuned for that one. And as you can kind of see, what I just noticed actually another thing. If you notice all my little cornerstone here, they all go green, pink, green, pink. And I didn't notice that until now. So I like that. When I had laid them out, I had reversed those, but that's okay. It looks really cute. I like the way it looks. I'm very happy with it. And in the next video, I will be starting the quilting, and that's going to be a very big surprise on how that's going to be done. So I really hope that you enjoyed this quilt series. I know it has been long, but I think that's the best way to show you each individual step, is to go over it all at one time in each one of those videos. And please subscribe, please give the videos a thumbs up. And again, if you would like to make this quilt, please purchase the actual pattern from Missouri Star Quilt Company. Yeah, I would love to have you all share what you have created if you do decide to make this quilt. I do have a Facebook group page that goes along with this YouTube channel. It is also called Jennifer's Sewing and Creativity. It is a private group, so you will have to answer some questions to join the group. And I have made the group private to keep the group security in the group. And the reason why I had to do that is because there were people trying to use the group as a dating site, and that is not what that page is, that Facebook group is about. So please definitely go check that out. And not a lot of people have shared a lot on it yet. And I highly encourage you all to do that if you do decide to join that group. And stick around, because we'll be having some exciting stuff happening really soon in the next video. So we'll see you all then, and bye-bye.